a podcast is nothing like digging ditches or framing a house, carpentry in general, plumbing, kind of hard. It's not even really stocking shelves or working as a wait person in a restaurant or a cook or whatever. But it has its good things and its drawbacks, just like just about anything. And one of the things that I've been having a little bit of a problem with recently is keeping my notes in a reasonable place so that I actually have time to talk about what the notes sort of start. But anyway, so I had a little bit of a problem with that today, and I think I've got it trimmed down to the point where it's not too horribly bad. But keep in mind that my notes are going to run a tiny bit long today. I think they'll still be meaningful and useful, so that doesn't really bother me horribly, but I really like to have a little more free time to talk. That being said, I probably ought to get into things. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I am Kurt, and today is Thursday, the 23rd of December of 2021. Thank you for everyone who's here on Rumble and YouTube on the podcast. Welcome aboard today. Hope you're doing well. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform, and today we're going to talk on the Establishment Clause. That's what we're going to be discussing. Let me go ahead and get into those notes so that I'm not taking too much time talking about them. As far as I know, every state in the United States has a constitution. That may not be the case, but even if they don't, they almost certainly have some sort of umbrella that covers things left to the states by the national document. This, as far as I'm able to tell, was more or less the intent of the founders. They wanted a national governmental entity with extremely limited powers. Most governing activity appears to have been intentionally left to the states or even smaller entities like counties, cities, or to individual people. In my mind, this is obvious not just in the base document, but in those, quote, critical, end of quote, first 10 amendments known collectively as the Bill of Rights, and for that matter, the other amendments as well. Let's see, where am I here? There's one intentional exception in my view. That would be the Second Amendment. It seems to not be that way. The person who penned it seems to have intended to make its effect overarching and penetrating. It seems to me they wanted everybody to be covered by it, regardless whether, in other words, that was a federal thing as far as they were concerned. Its effects were not to be left to lower entities. That, as I say, doesn't appear to be the case for most of the rest of the Constitution and its amendments. Like so many other parts of the U.S. Constitution, the Establishment Clause was not intended to limit states or other entities. I've argued before the First Amendment was not intended, in fact, to be binding on government at, quote, lower levels, end of quote, below the national one. To help put a point on this fact, as Mr. Dinesh D'Souza has, made clear, there literally were established religions at the state level and probably below in the country when the base laws were established, when the country was created and established. So when you read that First Amendment, let me put it up and then read what it says. It, like most of the document, is exceptionally brief and simple yet comprehensive. You should note an important fact. Let me go ahead and read it here. First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. It's pretty simple. I think everybody will agree. Let me go ahead and drop that down. The first segment is extremely precisely written. The first action taken is to note the scope of what's being said for the whole of the amendment as I see things. I'm not saying that any national mandate doesn't have equal statements made on a lower level, for example, in state documents or laws. Point is, it's on the lower level to put that in place. It's not on the federal level. It's not on the national level to do that. That said, if that revered piece of text does anything, it's to keep the, quote, nose of, end of quote, the national government out of religion. Whether any entity, governmental or not, chooses to embrace a faith is not the business of the federal government any more than if they don't. Excuse me. In other words, the Establishment Clause was not written to disallow the national government to take actions or support entities that held to some sort of spiritual belief. I'm running long on my introductions. That said, let's get into open discussion. So, what am I saying? What I'm saying is this. Anybody, any court or any individual who makes the statement, who forwards the idea that the federal government cannot support entities that have a religious basis is out of their tree, in my opinion. That First Amendment and that Establishment Clause were put in place not to limit anybody but the federal government. And they weren't put in place to limit the federal government in terms of allowing the federal government or not allowing them to support entities that had religious backgrounds. Now, I think Dinesh D'Souza was one of the people who said about this, that's great, but you have to realize that that means Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Hindu, whoever, Sikh, whoever it happens to be. It doesn't stop at Christian or at Protestant or at Lutheran or whatever. It stops pretty much nowhere. They don't have the right to stick their nose into that at all. They have the right to decide that they're going to support a particular thing, and then they have the right to support that thing regardless of whether there's any religious affiliation associated with it, but they don't have the right to support a religious affiliation or association as a direct matter of the federal government. Now, to be fair, that doesn't mean that Christians in the federal government can't do things like pray. So when Congress comes together, there are at least parts, if not the whole of Congress, that pray. Okay, that's great. That doesn't mean you can't be sworn in on a Bible. That's not what that means. It means that you cannot say that the United States is a Catholic nation, Buddhist nation. You can't say that. That's not a thing. You can't make it so that all the people in the United States are required to be Hindus. You can't do that. Islamic, Jewish, Christian, any of that. That's what that means. It means that you can't say that people are breaking the law if they don't go to church on Sunday. Even if they're Christians, that, where that may be something that they want to do and feel reasonable, that's not something that's a matter of law. It's a matter of conscience for those individuals. It may be something that a particular church says you must do. I'm not really willing to argue whether or not there's any validity to such an idea. Lots of people celebrate on Saturday and consider that the Sabbath, but also the day that they congregate and so forth. And I'm not anyone to tell them that they can't do that just as well as anybody who meets on Sunday. And I think, quite frankly, Sunday is a rather flimsy excuse for people to not meet on other days of the week generally. And I'm afraid to tell you that I think Saturday is often the same thing for a variety of folks. And that's very unfortunate in my viewpoint. All of this being said, what I'm trying to get at is that this idea that the Establishment Clause was supposed to be this Loctite, make it so that the federal government couldn't support anybody who supported any belief other than this or that, or couldn't support anything but a sectarian or secular viewpoints. No, that's just not the case. Again, that also means that they cannot discriminate, for example, against people who are Buddhist or whatever if they think that the policies that they're enacting or things that they're doing are reasonable and something that the federal government should support. In general, I should say that I don't think the federal government should be supporting most things anyway. That should be decided at lower levels as a rule, and frankly, they're doing far too much of that at the higher levels to begin with. But the point is, they should not be able to limit those things on the basis of religion of any kind. That's what that Establishment Clause is about. Okay, I need to go ahead and wrap things up. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Thursday, the 23rd of December of 2021, that day before Christmas Eve for most folks, when I assume most folks are going to get that day off. That is Friday, the 24th of December of 2021, which will be Christmas Eve. Welcome to everyone who is here on Rumble and the podcast YouTube. Thank you for coming along today. Hope that you're having a good day today. Obviously, remember Rumble is my preferred platform. Remember that on Rumble you can hit the boxing glove to give me a rumble. You can hit the plus to give me a positive feedback. You can give me minus. Hit the minus to give me a negative feedback. You can give me a thumbs up on YouTube or a thumbs down if you do or don't like what you see. Obviously, the thumbs up is a like and the thumbs down is intended to be a dislike. And I personally think that that's something that we should all pay attention to who are putting content out there. Remember that if I put my content on a given platform and there's the ability to comment, you can comment, and particularly if it notifies me, I will do everything that I can to look at those comments, internalize them, see what it is that you're saying, decide whether there's something I need to do, and that includes reply if I feel like that's something that's appropriate. Today's subject has been the Establishment Clause, and tomorrow we're going to talk about why black markets. That's a really good question, something that I think a lot of people don't do enough thinking about, and it has to do with systems of government, frankly, as a major and important part. But we're going to get into that, tomorrow, and hopefully, in the meantime, you'll have a good day and a good rest of the day, and hopefully things are going well for you in general. And I hope to see you again on Friday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video is recorded on Thursday, the 23rd of December of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @KPSchubert. That's @KPSHUBERT. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.